us who are putting out information because many or plenty don't have the ability to have all these subscriptions to look at all of the information that is out there that is afforded to us, right? So today we're going to read an article that came out in the New Yorker, and it talks about Colombia's president and how he's come to some kind of conversation with our president. Now, I don't really know what has come about this conversation because we're not privy to it, but this is an article that was written and I'm going to share it with you guys today. Okay. So bear with me. I'm going to read it off a different screen. So I know that I may not be looking um, once again, my name is Letty. My handle is Letty Love Me More because I truly believe that we need a lot of love and compassion currently with this political system that we're all living under. The This article is from the New Yorker. It is dated January 14th of 2026, and how Colombia's president reached an uneasy detente with Donald Trump. After the attack in Venezuela, its neighbor state reckons with the U.S. aggression. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you. Last week, Donald Trump sent the United Nations military into Venezuela to abduct President Nicolas Maduro. President Gustavo Petro of Colombia criticized it as it is an act of aggression against the sovereignty of Venezuela and Latin America. It was the latest in an escalating series of jibes between the two countries that have historically been allies in response to Trump's called Petro a sick man who was involved in shipping cocaine to the US, said that he should watch his ass. Wow. And told reporters that a military operation against Petro sounds good to me. I guess everything sounds good to me. But the other day, I read you guys an article that says that we only have $1 trillion for the budget of the Pentagon, and that he would absolutely need at least minimum of $2 trillion to be able to get out there and do everything that he wants to. So it appears that we're having some trouble with communication within the Pentagon to get the things that this administration would like. So here goes. Let's talk a little bit more. Petro, like Trump, is an impulsive user of social media. Wow. This is the time and age that we're living in. And although allies have tried to restrain his messaging, has become Trump's most outspoken leftist critic in the region. Hello, thank you for being here. Um, After the U.S. began striking alleged drug boats in the waters of Venezuela this past September, Petro derided Trump as a barbarian and the campaign as a murderer. He also suggested that the campaign was intended to distract from the Epstein files, warning that a clan of pedophiles wants to destroy our democracy. Trump called Petro a thug, accused him of being an illegal drug leader, and placed sanctions on him and the members of his family. Wow, I cannot cannot believe this. This is crazy. the here Trump's incursions into Venezuela seem to have brought the relationship to a dangerous inflection point. Petro called rallies to be held across Colombia on January 7th in defense of the national sovereignty. In a impassioned video shared through social media, he recalled an old adage proceeding to the eagle, the United States would one day attack the jaguar, the people of Colombia. Be careful, Trump and Rubio, he said. If the golden eagle dares to attack, they will find the jaguar awakening powerful and historic will be changed forever. This is crazy. So I mean I say it in this sense because they seem like two petulant children fighting, right? That evening in Bogota Plaza de Bolivar, the chanting crowd waved Colombian flags and held up place cards, shiny, shitty gringos, respect Colombia. Wow. Petro is not a narco trafficker. Petro is not known for punctuality. Arrived an hour and a half later, a man of moderate height with professional glasses, longish hair. He stood with an entourage of aides and bodyguards at the stage surrounding him with a Christmas lights left over from the recent festivities. A cheer went up and as he came to the microphone. Um, Petro announced that he had prepared another speech, but at the last minute something had happened and he changed his mind. Again, what changed his mind is that he had a conversation with Donald Trump. That's what happened. People's phones were allegedly flashing with news alerts that Petro and Trump had spoken by phone. After an hour of folksy distinguishing, Petro finally got around to describing the conversation. He told the crowd that he and Petro and Trump had recognized that if we don't talk, we're screwed. We'll kill each other. Wow. The risk of an attack had but the outcome would ultimately depend on the meeting between the two leaders. This is crazy. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I hope everyone's well. This is an article from the Atlantic, no, from the New Yorker. This comes from the New Yorker, and I think it's like two kindergarteners fighting, but they're at the top of the ladder in world leaders. And this is why I will never stop saying that we're in all these problems because of petulant men or children trying to get their panties all in a wad. Yeah, panties all in a wad. Here continues the story. After years of fiercely criticizing Trump, Petro surprised the crowd by saying that he and the American president had agreed to some things. One one was the sense of the evils of narco trafficking. Petro cited a litany of statistics about Colombia's efforts to halt drug smuggling. The people in the plaza ultimately booed and clapped, unsure of whether to welcome the detentee. Beams circled afterwards suggesting that Petro had caved to Trump or that the two were newfounded amigos. Too compound, too surreal mood. Petro's office issued a meme that showed a bald eagle snuggling up to the jaguar. What the fuck? I'm sorry. Continuing on. 2 days later, Petro agreed to speak with me in the office. I arrived on time. He waited for several hours while Petro had an emergency meeting with the commander of his security forces. Finally, an aide explained to another concern had arisen. Petro had received a note from Trump inviting him to Washington. Yes, he will be in Washington on February 3rd and had summoned his cabinet to discuss it. But the aide said that the president would see me first. While his ministers gathered in the hallway, Petro spoke with me for 90 minutes. And this is for the interviewer, right? Petro sat in the favorite leather armchair, dressed comfortably in sneakers, slacks, and white cardigan. A female assistant was coming, combing his hair. The office had the lived-in look, a grand school apartment. There's a blanket folded at the couch, papers and books chaotically piled in a coffee table and desk, rumpled paper maps, and a Colombian hung easel. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being out here. Appreciate it. I have shouted out. Hi. Can I have a shout out? Hi. How are you, Stitch Girl? Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Hi. Hello. Um. So here we continue on with this. These two guys are something else. Okay, first they're like killing each other, and now they're like best friends. Okay, Petra was charismatically unhurried. The last time I had seen him was in 2023, near the end of his first year in office, and then as ever, Petro had seemed to inhabit his own thoughts, speaking for more than 2 hours on sprawling ranges of topics. He talked at length about books on capitalism, climate change, that he was writing between presidential obligations. He also complained that the palace was cold and uncomfortable when when a presidential military band in the plaza outside stuck up unusual afternoon tunes. He closed the shutters and grimaced, saying, "They drive him crazy." Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? This is a world leader. Oh my god. Okay, here we go. We continue. Now 65, Petro is a survivor of brutal era in which the Colombian state assassinated leftist leaders and butchered their followers in an effort to quell the country. Marxist guerrilla forces, the death toll over 935 years estimated to be well over 400,000 people. In the 80s, Petro was a member of the M19's urban insurgents who caught the world's attention by taking the American ambassador and more than a dozen other foreign diplomats hostage for 2 months. They also see the country's palace of justice in a bloody showdown. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is the story about Petro and Trump. Crazy ass people, man. Petro entered politics in the 90s after Colombia government agreed to an amnesty and served as a congressman and mayor of Bogota. In 2022, he became the country's first left-wing president. He began his first term with the dramatic speech of the UN General Assembly, in which he called for halt of global hydrocarbon use and for a new policy and decriminalization to end the bloody fertile war on drugs. He also announced a total peace effort to solve the country's myriad insurgents by negotiating all fighting factions. So this guy looks like he's been trying to do a good job, but it's crazy that he's over here trying to make peace with Trump. Not many of these goals have been achieved. Petro's presidential initiatives have been largely symbolic, as the number armed fighters in the countryside seem only to have grown. Petro has broken off talks and gone to war, dismissed rebels as dressed up drug pushers. He has also made little headway in decriminalizing drugs, despite having once claimed that cocaine is no more than harmful than whiskey. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that. He now talks mostly about coca crops his government destroyed. As a climate change agenda, he has halted new petroleum explorations, but Colombia still exports oil and coal because of the abrupt transition. It must import natural gases to meet its needs. Okay, like I didn't know any of this. I don't know if you guys knew this or not. Okay, Petro's self-assured stubbornness has won him many adversaries. But in the Plaza of Bolivar, his followers called out to him with the most religious fervor. By getting elected and surviving in office, he has reserved the state's repression of leftist groups. In a gesture to the working class, he extended universal pensions to the elderly, Colombians, and raised minimum wage by 24 cents. Skeptics in the business community say that the increased wages simply inflate prices. Nevertheless, in a country with widespread poverty, such efforts resonate. In the recent polls, roughly a quarter of Colombians say that they regard themselves as leftists, and the measure of what Petro calls a desire for change in unequal country. So it looks like the article begins talking about okay, here we go. We get back into Trump and Hugo Chavez and the whole thing. Let's go. After the U.S. attacked Caracas, Petro went on X and suggested that historical line had been crossed. The first South American capital bombed like Hitlerian bombing uh Gre- Gre- Guernica cannot be forgotten. Friends do not bomb. When I asked about the Tumtulum in the region, he began by saying that he liked and admitted and admired Hugo Chavez. who set the motion in Venezuela, Boliviano's revolution a quarter century ago. He didn't feel the same way about Chavez's successors, Maduro, although he rejected Trump's claims that Maduro was a drug trafficker. First of all, they don't have coca fields. That, that's in Colombia, he expressed to the administration. Chavez's movement ended up in Maduro's hands and became a series of factions, including the military, that wanted to control the oil, he said. Maduro's model is in its final stages, brought to a process of degradation that still hasn't bottomed out. Trump had made a had made it clear that he was leaving Maduro's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez in charge. Petro described Rodriguez as a friend and that he would help her however he could. It would not be easy for her to accommodate the more militant members of her security force while also appearing or appeasing the US. But he said that he hoped her government would be able to find it a way forward. As long as there's trust and elections are called, Trump is going to realize that either he becomes more violent with increasingly serious problems in Venezuela, in the world, and his own country, or he gets involved in the rule of the games, and that's already exists. But here we go to the next part. Hello, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Before the recent call, Petro contact with Trump came largely in the form of trash talk online. From the first day Trump's government, there was never any communication with us. He told me, if two presidents don't communicate, the government fills that the vacuum with the other force. At the start Trump's second term, the US deported Colombian nationals in shackles in military planes, and Petro prohibited aircraft from landing in Colombia. In a Twitter exchange that stretched for more than a day, Trump ranted at Petro and threatened sharp tariffs on Colombian exports, while Petro likened himself to be a rebellious, right? Doomed hero Gabriel Garcia Marquez on 100 Years of Solitude, if you didn't know, was banned. Petro finally assented after several former Colombian presidents offered to help smooth things over. Relationships calmed down, but the episode prefigured Trump's dealings with leaders of other nations. From Canada to Panama, I thought that the presidents were going to do the same. Petro said, recalling the defiance. Instead, they mostly chose to appeal or appease the US. And that's kind of true because for a while, when they had that United Nations meeting here in the United States, it seemed like Petro had some pretty good, some pretty big balls there calling Trump a pedo. But then immediately that changed. Immediately that went a different way, right? So the recent call came urge about the urging of Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. The timing was not auspicious. The night before, Petro had gone on X to reject accusation that he was involved in narco trafficking, writing, "The title that Trump assigns me as an outlaw of drug trade is a reflection of his own senile brain." Those are some hard words. But Petro told me that Trump had struck a light tone when they spoke. He didn't want to get involved in substance discussions. He said he simply wanted to build communication. When Petro insisted that the accusations of his involvement in the drug trade were fake, Trump was kind of like, you know, you're surrounded by lies, just like me. Oh my God, that's how he excused himself. So, if you guys want to find this article, it's pretty long. If you want to read this article, I suggest you read it on The Atlantic. It's a great article, but there's a lot of fun, ha ha ha, and there's a lot like these two are petulant children. We have a bunch of world leaders running this country, running this world, who are just power hungry, and they're taking us for the ride. So it's time for us to say, till when? When are we done with this ride? So we have the ability to do a lot here in the United States with Congress, right? What can you do abroad? What are you able to do abroad for your government and change things for humanity? And I guess that's the question. So thank you for being here with me. I appreciate all of you that showed up and stayed, and the ones that passed through as well. Have a fabulous weekend.